Our reading this morning is taken from John's Gospel, chapter 6. Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But I said to you that you have seen me, and yet do not believe. Everything that the Father gives me will come to me, and anyone who comes to me will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. This is indeed the will of my Father, that all who see the Son and believe in him may have eternal life. And I will raise them up on the last day." As I said, a gospel reading from John's Gospel, which I think gives us an opportunity to reflect upon the bread of life. Whatever age we are, it's always good to look again at some of the very basics of our Christian faith, and this passage certainly gives us an opportunity. Firstly, I wonder what Jesus meant when he talks of the bread of life. We all know that bread is essential to our lives. Bread today comes in so many different varieties. There is wholemeal, sourdough, rye, granary, pitha, naan, multigrain, potato bread, and this is to name just a few. And with so much on offer, it's often not easy to make a good choice. What bread do I want to satisfy my hunger? Perhaps that's a question we might ask ourselves about our faith. What do I need to do to encourage my faith to grow? We all eat bread to satisfy our hunger and to sustain our physical life. But to satisfy our hunger and sustain spiritual life, we can only do this by a right relationship with Jesus Christ. As I said, bread must be eaten to sustain life, and Christ must be invited into our daily lives to sustain our spiritual growth. The early church would meet regularly for the breaking of bread, so it's not surprising that there is a deep interest in Jesus as the bread of life. The reading that I read comes shortly after the story of the feeding of the 5,000. Here, a small offering was given to Jesus. But how can such a small amount of bread and 2 small fishes be shared among so many people? Jesus held up the offering and asked God to bless it. The disciples then took it among the people and fed them. By the end of the day, everyone had enough to eat, and there were many, many baskets of leftovers. Following this wonderful miracle, people followed Jesus, thinking that he would feed them again. Perhaps they thought they would never have to work again or struggle for the money to buy one of life's very basic commodities. Because Jesus fed so many people, the crowds kept following him, looking again for more food. Jesus was able to ask them, "What are you looking for? Are you looking for me because you saw signs, or because you ate your fill of the loaves?" How often do we fail to read the signs that point us to God? We often journey on, don't we? Seeking and perhaps even ignoring the God who satisfies our emptiness and who is indeed here in our very midst. We fill our lives with perishable goods and forget the one who alone gives us true life. We work hard for the food that perishes, but not for the food that endures to eternal life. That is what our faith offers us. This is what the Son of Man will give us. I often wonder what we must do in order to receive eternal life. Is it that eternal life is received and the works of God are also given simply by believing in him and in the one he sent? David Adams says in one of his books that the Greek word for belief is far more than just believing in God. It is to have faith in him. That is to have a living relationship with God. In fact, it's about our personal relationship with the living God and with Jesus, whom he has sent. I guess it's a bit like a car without an engine. No matter what we do, it's never going to work. If we don't have a relationship with God, we cannot truly perform his works. What we must do is to give our hearts to God. Only when people are humble enough to recognize God's unique revelation in Jesus can they then taste the bread of heaven. God's initiative is always balanced in the Bible with an open and free appeal. Anyone at all who is thirsty is invited to come to the water that is on offer. Anyone at all who comes to Jesus will not be rejected. In this passage that we have read today is the promise that goes along with eternal life, which could otherwise be an unclear and blurred idea of life after death. Those who come to Jesus in faith are promised that he will raise them up on the last day. I think that helps to explain the hope that is on offer throughout the whole of John's Gospel. Eternal life is the quality of life, sharing the inner life of Jesus that is on offer to anyone who believes. Eternal tells us what sort of life it is, as well as the fact that it goes on after death. It is the life of the age to come, the new life which God has always planned to give to his world. Having the eternal life, the beginning is the present, when someone believes and continues into the future beyond death, will eventually take the form of the resurrection life. John is telling us that with Jesus, who is pioneering the way for us, is the promise of the present chapter, and is a life that will be shared by all who taste the living bread.